Hi, this is Blake, and we are working on the Highway Tag Africa course. This section is about deciding if something is a road or a path, and I really think that that's the biggest decision you have to make. Once you decide something's a road, you're generally going to zoom out and make your decision about how to classify or how to tag that road based on what you see, how you see the road behaving. What you see its function as, what you see its role as, what you see it connecting and not connecting. So, and if you've decided that it's a path, then there's really only one classification for it, and that's path. So that's why I think the toughest decision that you have to make, and really the only decision that you generally make about classifying roads zoomed in, is this decision about something is a path or a road. In this area we're looking at, here's a large settlement. This probably classifies as, that's at least a town, if not a city in Africa. Then this looks like a very major road. This is probably trunk or primary. And then around here, this is almost all farmland. I don't see a lot of settlements, but this whole area looks like farmland. So a lot of these smaller roads that you see coming off of the larger settlement, a lot of these are going to be classified as track. Because track only goes to, it's not for connection. This is a connecting road. That connects to another village. This road, if I follow it, probably connects to another village. These don't seem to connect to other settlements. These look to me like they only are dealing with agriculture. And you can follow them along. I mean, we zoomed out so we could see if they were significant in roads or not. But then you can come in here. You can zoom in and follow them along and see if they're connecting. This road doesn't really connect to anything, just sort of peters out. So this is probably a track because it's just access to farmland. It's not really serving a connection function. But the question we have is is path or track, path or road. Because once we decide it's a road, it's easier to classify. And this is another one of these things where zooming out helps, because I can see that this is pretty significant. Runs along here, one goes off this way, this goes off northwest. So zooming in, I can start to see, now here's something that looks like a path to me. This looks like a path, this looks like a path. This, as I said, this is one of the things you can zoom in to determine. You can start to see where there's tracks, where you can see that a vehicle is making ruts, versus something like this where that's really hard to I don't detect any. These are probably paths. And, you know, it makes sense. This is a path that goes off of the road. You know, roads get used as paths. So people are walking along these roads, and then they venture off the road and make a path because they're going to something like this farm building, or they're going out to work in these fields. This is probably a path. It's also another sort of indicator of a path. You see it's a very jagged, irregular shape. And it's tough to drive that way, and really you wouldn't bother driving that way. You would probably just come off of the road up here and come to where you were trying to go. But as long as you're walking, you can be pretty flexible. So this is probably a path. And again, these are the sorts of things that disappear when I zoom out. Now, I looked at this previously, and I don't know what this is. I don't know what this is. This actually looks like it's probably a land feature that got turned into a path or a track, but I don't know. I'd have to really think about this, and I'd probably end up asking somebody what their opinion was. So I zoom out. This looks like a path. This looks like a path that goes off and then continues up here. Again, it goes to this farm building and then services those crops. But what I want you to get out of this is that your big decision is path or road. Because once you determine this is a road, now you zoom out and you see what it does. Okay, this is a track. It's really only servicing, it's not connecting villages, it's really only servicing farmland for as far as I follow it. So this is, I'm comfortable, this is all track. Little things like this, these are paths. I also wouldn't map a lot of these paths. And I discourage you from mapping short segments of path. So, for example, if you find a path that actually goes off of a road like this, I might, okay, reasonable people could come to different conclusions. This is probably a track. But if you're coming across short sections of what you determine to be path, you know, it's just not very helpful to map short disconnected sections. So if you see what you think is a path, this is probably a path, try and follow it back to where it gets to, something, an intersection with something, so that it's useful information once it's mapped. I can go down this road and there will be a path that then I can take off, and then I can get to crops or grazing area or something like that. But if you're mapping all visible paths and you happen upon short segments that aren't really connected to anything, which I'm not really seeing a good example of, don't just map short sections not connected to anything. So don't just map a short section like this long. Granted, you can see that this goes up here and connects as a path. But don't just map this. If you want to map a path, try and map it off of something. And if you see a very short section like this, I generally don't map it because it's not super useful. We're trying to use these road maps and path maps to get places. Now, that's a little bit different. If we come in here and look at this city, again, here's these, this is a road, this is a residential road, this is a residential road, and a lot of these look like paths. Sure, you could drive down it, maybe a motorcycle, something like that, but I'm not too sure I would map every little faint line that's a path here. I might very well map this one that goes diagonally to here, and I might very well map this one that cuts across diagonally to here, but you've got to be a little bit selective about what paths you map, because you can spend a lot of time mapping little tiny paths that may or may not be adding a whole lot of information to the map. So when it comes time to actually mapping some of these paths, be a little selective on which ones you map. These are probably roads anyway. These look big enough to be roads, and you can kind of see a double track here. But when you're looking at something like this, consider whether or not you want to map every little bit of spider path versus doing the ones that actually have a significant purpose. If this is a path, this is pretty good. I would probably map that as a path. I might map this as a path. I would probably zoom in and look around a little bit more. But what I want you to get out of this lesson is that your big decision is to determine if something is a path or if it's a road. Because if it's a path, there's only one tag for it. And if it's a road, then you're going to zoom out and start to look at its function and its role versus exactly what it looks like in detail. Okay, thank you very much.